Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airbus pilot, and welcome to our first flight with the FSLabs Airbus A321neo. We have finally gotten a study level A321neo, and it even includes the LR variant so that we can do actual long haul flights of up to 4,000 nautical miles with it, which I'm really looking forward to doing. But in today's video, let's get a general overview of the airplane, have a look at how it operates and how it flies. We are going to take it through a couple of exercises as well, such as trying some of the control laws and how the aircraft handles, and then we're going to come back for a landing here in Finkenwerder. So this is going to be a fairly interesting one, and at the end of this flight I want you guys to be able to say, yeah, this is something that I want to spend around about 75 euros, that's the price including taxes, on, or if you'd rather spend 100 and get the Phoenix entire fleet. Likewise, if you already have the Phoenix, I want you to be able to make a decision, is this worth spending so much money on, or would I rather wait for the Phoenix Neos? Alright, so that much about the basics over here. Now let's get right into it and start by just having a look around the flight deck, because you can see that the flight deck looks good, but is not as good as the competition. There are some parts which are really nice. Think, for example, the overhead panel over here. Even when going close up, this is just looking really good. And then there are some parts which just stand out, like the window section over here, which, I don't know, doesn't really catch me. Like, they could improve that for a little bit. And the same goes for some parts that are like almost in your direct point of view, like over here, there's some light bleeding through. I mean, yes, there is a gap in here, which is correct, but I don't know, it just looks a little... Well, let's just say they could improve those a little bit. So the main panel is looking good. A couple of things are in there, like for example the color difference between the main panel here and then the pedestal here. I mean, there is absolutely no reason for there to be a color difference, especially on a brand new aircraft such as an A321neo. If we were talking an old airplane that might have seen parts of its panel replaced, then absolutely yes, but we're talking about a brand new aircraft and we just have different colors everywhere, which normally is an indicator that you've got, you know, several different replacement parts on your aircraft already. But that's just something worth pointing out here that I hope they are going to work on, that I hope they are going to improve. But okay, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and actually power the airplane up. And for this, we will first of all go down into the EFB. You can just unlock it with a triple or quadruple 0. Then we'll go into the connections. Now in here you can also remote control your GSX. And we can do that later on, but initially, let's just make sure that we've got the chocks in place, which we do now, and then we want the ground power unit in place. And everything else we're going to do a little bit later. So, preliminary cockpit preparation, engine master levers off, mode selector, norm, weather radar. This is, okay, here we go. Weather radar is checked. Off, landing gear lever down, wipers are off, then the battery voltage is more than 25.5 volts. Batteries on and external power on. Now let's give the airplane a little moment to boot up here, and I do emphasize that you should pay some attention to the sounds as well. Okay, while the airplane is powering up, let's go ahead and have a very quick look at a feature that I actually like quite a... what's happened? That I actually like quite a bit, and that's not the flight plan viewer, which I do like as well, by the way, but the fact that we can operate the refueling panel with a remote control. So you can actually open that one in your web browser, and then you are going to get the fuel panel, and you can make some settings over there. But before we do that, let's quickly decide on the actual fuel quantity we want to take. So today is pretty easy, since the weather is perfect, and they've already calculated us with plenty of arrival fuel. So 6.6 is the minimum fuel for this flight, and that's exactly what I am going to uplift. That includes an hour and 14 minutes of extra fuel here. So let's now go to the fuel panel and set that. And I've just opened the fuel panel on my browser over here, but you can open it on your iPad, your tablet, whatever. And for this we are going to take the pre-selected fuel quantity up here. We're going to dial that up to the quantity that we actually want to take. And now you could either just request the fueling through GSX, or you could just start it over here, which is quite a nice thing. So let's go ahead, mode select the refuel, and then we can just close this one again. And you can see that now the fueling panel is on and the airplane is refueling itself. So that's quite a cool thing. Now let me just stop that again on the refueling panel, because I want to show you the alternative as well. So let's just turn the mode selector back off again. And now let's go right down into our MCDU. We're going to turn that one on. And you can see I did previously go into the panel states over here to select cold and dark. Now, since some of you keep asking, yes, you can also save a panel state over here. And interestingly enough, this is showing me my... Well, you can save some of those panel states down here and basically create your own ones for those standard situations, which is quite a cool thing. You can also define a default panel state that it's always going to load when the aircraft is loaded. So auto will of course just use the standard MSFS binding, so whether you spawn on a gate or whether you spawn on the runway, and you can just select your own one down here as well, which is quite cool. Now, all of that out of the way, what I wanted to show you is actually that we have quite a different ATSU. And for today's video, I will be using my brand new WinWings Airbus MCDU. So if you don't see me clicking buttons down here, that's because I'm using that on my hardware panel, which works out of the box with the FSLabs as well as with the Phoenix. But more on that unit in a dedicated video. Now let's go down here to the ATSU and then into the AOC menu. And you can see that we have a couple more options in here than we have in the competition. Now we're going to go to init and we'll do the data request. You can see it's already automatically uplinked the flight number down here, which is Airbus 323 Whiskey, Finkenwerder to Finkenwerder, and the initialization is received. Now let's go to the second page. Actually, let's go to the crew details up here and just insert our details. So 330 driver in here and a co-pilot in here, and that shall be fine. So return to init advisory, and then we can go down into the OFP data. And this is where you can also select the fuel quantity that you want to take, and from where you can remote control GSX, which is quite cool because we have to fill this page out on every single flight in the real world. So 6,600 is selected there. The taxi and trip fuel are okay. We need those for the load sheet. Then we need our OFP number, and that one is usually at the very top. So you can see we've got OFP number 3. So number 3 in here, zero fuel weight is checked, scheduled time of departure, let's see, yeah, in half an hour looks good, is checked, and you can select several different refueling methods. So you can select GSX, manual, instant, automatic, as you wish. We are going to use GSX today. Alright, so with all of that data checked, let's press send OFP data. And that way it's now going to call for GSX to start our refueling on its own. Likewise, we can go into the boarding tab up next, and over here we can select exactly how many crew members and passengers and how much cargo we want on board and how it's distributed, which is a pretty cool thing because that way you can control the center of gravity of your aircraft. Now we'll be 2 pilots, 0 cabin crew, and we'll have 1 quality engineer from Airbus on board, and there should be nothing in the holds. Going on to the next page, we can keep 100% water, but we will of course not have any catering on board over here. And last but not least, we can already attach our tuck down here, and then we can also select at what time boarding shall begin, or whether it should just begin now. Let's say board now, and then we can hit request down here, and that way our exact boarding and loading is going to be controlled, and it will be calling for GSX accordingly, which is quite cool. Alright, so that stuff is done. Then we can go into the weather request, and we're looking for Echo Delta Hotel India. And we'll also gather Hamburg and we'll gather Hannover, just because those are nearby airports, which we want to know how the weather conditions are going to be there. So let's go for a METAR for those airports, and then we can head into the received messages, and you can see we've already gotten quite a couple. So let's start at the bottom with the lower message, and that's a slot notification for flight 323 Whiskey from Finkenwerder to Finkenwerder, CTOT 1043. So that's the calculated takeoff time with the estimated off block at 10:30. Okay, that's actually 0 delay, 13 minutes taxi time, looks good. So let's return, and then we can head to the load sheet. Load sheet for today's flight. Let's quickly go over it. You are probably familiar with that layout already. It's load sheet edition number 3, and flight 323 Whiskey on the 21st of June 2025 from Finkenwerder to Finkenwerder. That's our registration, Sierra November Fox Sierra Lima. 2 pilots, 0 cabin crew, and then the 0 fuel weight is pretty much the lowest we're ever going to have on this aircraft. Takeoff fuel 6.5 and takeoff weight 55.6. And let's go to the next page. What's interesting here is the underload, of course. Now today that's not really going to matter because we are just doing a maintenance check flight. Passengers 1, and then we've got our SCGs and the distribution within the cabin zones. Alright, portable water 100%, and that's about it. Let's see, fuel and tank 6.6, accept, and that's it. Now we've also gotten the weather. So, Finkenwerder at 0950, 250 at 5, slightly variable, 10 kilometers, no clouds detected, 23 degrees, QNH 1023. Then Hamburg is likewise looking good, and Hannover is also looking good. Perfect, so very good weather conditions, and with that our ACARS is initialized. So, QNH 1023, may as well set that now already. Cool. And that's what we could do down here for now. Now there is a lot more stuff in here, but we are going to get to that soon. Now, one more thing that I can show you here, refueling is completed, is the fuel page. So when you click on, when that one shows a 6 next to it, that means that numbers have already been uplinked. And you can see that in here. Now, that data has been uplinked by the fuelers, and now we can just enter whatever we have here. Now, important to mention, if you refuel twice like we did on today's flight, then you necessarily will have to file 2 fuel reports. So be sure to write down the data of the first refueling, because it is no longer shown in here. So we're just going to copy the data they uplinked. That's 1079, it's in liters, the density 0.802. We always overtype this because sometimes it automatically changes it. Supplier is Shell, and that's all looking good. The difference over here is what we're looking for. 0.1 is okay, and then we can just send that fuel report. Okay, wonderful. So that's everything we had to do down here so far. So then, let's go ahead and continue with our preliminary pre-flight procedures. The ADRs is going to come on, number 1, 2, and 3. Then let's do the APU fire tests. It's looking good. And I tell you what, with 23 degrees outside, let's get the APU running. So master switch on and starter switch on. APU is starting up, and while it's doing that, we can do our recall. The 3 seconds, and there's nothing in here. Very good. Now let's have a look at the hill, aka let's have a look into the tach log. We can see that lavatory A toilet strut is in here. It's still a valid item, and lavatory A toilet strut cracked, tape applied, still serviceable. Level 2 and raised due to no spare parts ordered. Okay, that's copied. Can't really fix it now. or rather there's no sense fixing it now. It will be up to the airline if they're going to accept the airplane like this or not. Alright, so that's our hill. Now for the aircraft configuration, it's an A321neo with a LEAP 1A engine, and at the moment FSLabs only has the LEAP 1A engine. They don't have the Pratt & Whitney at this moment. They are going to deliver it later though. Well, and that's really all we've got in here. So let's tune up our radios. 1, 2, and 3. So APU is available. Let's turn the APU bleed on so that we get a little bit of air conditioning going. If you look into the page, you can see it was 31 degrees in here before, so we definitely want that one going. Okay. I do want to try one thing though, so let's just turn that APU bleed off again and let's open the window. So, with the open window, the question is the temperature inside the cockpit going to reduce? It should, at some point, become more or less equal to the outside air temperature. Now, let's just review. We've got something in the ACARS here, and that's the final load sheet already. Nice. So you can not only view your ACARS messages down there on the MCDU, but you also have the ability to view them on the EFB, which is quite cool. So here's the load sheet. Let's just see. Zero flow weight 50.3, takeoff weight 56.8, 0 passengers, and all that stuff is checked, looking good. So reply, accept, and here we go. Alright, nice. We'll get back to that later on. For the time being, let's keep it at that. Now let's go into the takeoff calculator. And I really like the layout of this. This just looks so much more similar to the real-world tool than any others I've seen in flight simming. Now just a quick check here about our load sheet. Let's see, takeoff CG 19.2, takeoff weight 56.8. So 56.8 is correct, and over here we should have 19.2. Perhaps they will be able to move the keyboard around at some point, because right now it's a little annoying that you can't see this while you're filling it out. The weather data is looking okay, and then hits calculate. Will it? Okay, let's select the runway. That makes it a little bit easier to calculate takeoff data. And here we go. Very high takeoff speeds. I'm not sure why they did that. You can see the correct minimum speeds are calculated over here. Why do they select the upper range? I have no clue. Absolutely no clue. Doesn't make any sense. It's legal, those are valid takeoff speeds, but I really wish that they are going to rework that. Also, the engine out database seems to be rather outdated, because LBVOR Lima Bravo Echo was renamed into Lima Bravo Victor some 5 or 6 years ago, and decommissioned 2 years ago. So no way you're going to fly this anymore. So perhaps a little update to the engine out database would be appreciated. Alright, and that's what we got down here. On the positive side, they do have the stop margin, and they do have V1 ranges, which are fairly common things with Airbus aircraft. I'll make a dedicated video on those and how to decide what to use in the future. Okay, so we now know that we can take off, and now let's have a look into our charts. This was an easy one as well, just hit import, and if you go to the pinned charts, you can see that it's automatically pinned everything you're going to need. So it's automatically pinned the SID, the airport chart, the parking stands, so that's really, really nice. And also the parking stand, the second parking stand chart, which is actually the one that we're parking on, 217 Lima today. Alright, so with that our EFB is prepared for duty. Then let's go ahead and check on our temperatures, and you can see they're actually reducing, but I tell you what, let's get that APU lead going. And let's close the window, and it's closed and locked, as we can see the red pin. Okay, very good. So with that out of the way, let's cross-check our oxygen, which is good. Our hydraulic quantities are good. Engine, we gotta power the FADEC. The switch is hidden right up here on the aft overhead panel. Turning that on, and oil quantities are good. Alright, so let's go ahead and turn this back off again. So, flaps retracted, spoilers retracted. Let's test our alternate brakes. So, parking brake off. Then let's check those, and the pressure is a little bit low over here. I would expect at least 1000 psi. So that's something that FSLabs probably still has to work on. Alright, parking brake set again, and interestingly enough, when the parking brake is set, you do get sufficient brake pressure. However, you do not get any drop in the accumulated pressure, which I would expect. Okay, and that's our preliminary cockpit preparation completed down here. One thing that may be worth mentioning though, is that it may be an idea for you to check the circuit breakers, because they're actually all simulated. So any of that stuff over here, you can just pull. And the same goes for any of the stuff back here. Alright. So, with that out of the way, let's go into our cockpit preparation. And I'll do this one quickly because, let's face it, it's an Airbus. There isn't all that much to say about this. You've seen it a million times. So, fire test looking good in engine number 1. And likewise on engine number 2. Okay. Right side is set. We'll be sure to record the PAs. Come on. Here we go. So QNH is set. Let's bring the DCDUs up. June 25 looks good. And it's gonna be a dry runway today, so let's select that. Okay, so frequencies. Quick check. And we've got Finkenwerder Tower 123255 and 1215 is already set. We want to listen to VHF 1 and 2. We don't want to blow our ears away. Weather radar is set. Down here everything's done, and TCAS isn't located here but in here. So let's see, it's selected above. On standby, and ATC mode standby, Squawk 2000. That's what we want to see. Okay, good. And then let's go into the FMS. Now, FMS setup is going to be fairly straightforward. It's an Airbus, and the FSLabs actually has a few things that I want to show you that we haven't seen on others yet. So let's go into the FMGC and cross-check. A321-200, Leap 1A, nav database up to date. Now let's go to the init page, and you can see that this is already completely filled out. Why is that? Quite simple, because when we were in the ATSU and requested our flight data on here, remember when we pressed the init data request? That's uplinking the entire flight plan. And that's how it's supposed to be. That's how Airbus works. Okay, we still need a cross-check though, so let's bring out the OFP. And we're going from Finky to Finky, alternate Hamburg, and Airbus 323 Whiskey is the call sign. Cosine X21, flight level 230 is also correct. And then let's move to the flight plan page. Finkenwerder, departure 23, Hamburg 3 Whiskey departure, insert. And for the arrival it's also going to be 23 via Rarup. Okay, and insert. Now, here's a nice feature. To enter our engine outset, we're just gonna go straight ahead for 25 miles. That's just making things easiest. So, for our engine outset, let's type that waypoint, X-ray Fox W emergency 2. It doesn't know the waypoint, so it opens the new waypoint page. Let's insert that. So, Finkenwerder 23/227/25. Put that in here, hit store, and now look at what it does. It now automatically inserts that waypoint on the secondary flight plan, which is exactly what it should do. And note that we can insert it right below the departure runway, which is a bug in other Airbus simulations as well, because this is how we enter it in the real world. Departure runway, emergency waypoint. Now let's go into here to the hold. 227, 1 minute lag time is already pre-selected. The only thing I'm missing here is the insert button, because on the real airplane we have that. Because now, hey, I might decide that I don't want the hold, just hit return, and now it's in the flight plan anyway. Now let's go to the LATRAF from the XFW X2 and immediately return to Finkenwerder. And I know we could just have used or kept the active flight plan, but I wanted it this way just to show you how we would do this in the real world. And that stuff is all in. Now to the flight plan page. This is the same that you already know from elsewhere. Finkenwerder 23, 227 and XFW X2. Here we go. Now comes something new though. That's on the data and the pilot's routes. And in here, let's store that flight plan. So we'll just call this test flight and store. And now look at this. In here, we've got the entire route that we are going to use to cross-check that the uplink is actually correct. Again, this is something that doesn't work with the competition. So we are departing Finkenwerder runway 23, Hamburg 3 Whiskey departure. Then Lima 272 Rama, Zulu 998 Python, Lima 619 Porus, direct Nonza, Quebec 800 Rosok, Tango 906 Rarup, and then we've got the Rarup transition for an ILS approach runway 23. And that way we can cross-check our entire route and make sure that the route that was uplinked to our flight plan is actually the very same that we have filed in our plan. SOP, you do this on every single flight. Okay, so for the init page I'm just going to go for the load sheet straight away, because it has already arrived. And that's the final load sheet. So zero fuel weight is 50.3. Let's do it this way. So 50.3 and the CG is 21.6. Insert 6.6 tons fuel. The average wind was automatically uplinked in here. And then we can enter our fuel figures. So that's alternate 1, reserves 0.9, and contingency 0.2. Alright, and that leaves us with 54 minutes of extra fuel. Now, when that is done, let's go on to the performance page, and over here we can now enter our takeoff data. Now, just to show you, you do also have a menu to uplink this, and you can even request your takeoff data through the ATSU. So let me just show you how that works. You go down here to ATSU, AOC menu, and then you got the performance request button on the left. And in here you can just enter your entire wind and weather data, and you can use that to actually generate a performance uplink for you, which is a pretty cool feature. Now, don't really use that in my airline. For this reason, I will stick to using the electronic flight bag. So let's go down here, takeoff data, and that's it. So we got a config 1 plus F takeoff, 2.5 units trim up, and flex 57. So 1/up 2.5 and flex 57. And then we have takeoff speeds of 160, 160, 163. Okay, noise abatement procedure number 2 is down here, and engine out acceleration in 1500 is correct. We don't need to pre-select anything, so last thing I'm going to enter is going to be our runway on here. And that's basically it. Now we could do a wind data uplink at this point. We won't really need it, because fuel is not of our concern on today's flight. But just to let you know, you could do this. And it takes a little while, just like it does on the real aircraft as well. Okay, cool. So last thing for us to do is to set up our EFIS, and we can use that time to cross-check our SID as well. So let's see, Hamburg 3 Whiskey departure is runway 23, 500 feet, Hotel India 100, and then 1500, whichever is later. And down here, that's exactly what we have, 500, 1500, and then Hotel India 110, which has a 220 knot restriction, followed by Hotel India 111, and then Hamburg VOR. And that's exactly what we've got. Now this is the arrival, don't get confused by this. Alright, initial climb clearance is 5000. I'll set 5100 since we don't have ATC clearance just yet. And that's everything I can do for you down here for the time being. And with that, we have finished the setup of our A321neo. Now, our estimated off-clock time was at 30, so we are actually running pretty well for that. Now, we are already operating on the APU. They have disconnected the ground power. That happened when I released the park and brake. Be careful when you do the brake check while you're operating on external power only. That can cause your aircraft to black out. You will see that happening in a future video. Okay, so with that we are pretty much set up for everything here. Wind data uplink has just arrived. And that is looking good. Okay, excellent. So, all that good stuff aside, let's go for the departure briefing, please. Okay, thank you very much. We are sitting in an A321neo from Finkenwerder runway 23, initial climb 5000, MSA 2300. Extra fuel and time, we have about 50 minutes in the form of 1800 kilograms. And that's absolutely correct. So for our taxi, we don't have any hotspots over here. It's a fairly easy one. Stop margin for rejected takeoff is 184 meters plus TAS effect. Engine out straight ahead to the Finkenwerder X2 point, and we got that one down here. So Finkenwerder X2 climbing 3000, 2300 is the MSA, and if anything happens that requires an immediate return, we are below the maximum landing weight, so we can come back immediately. We don't need the overweight landing procedures today. Well, and then we'll just bring it straight back to the factory, and they'll be repairing that. Apart from that, I have nothing special. I have nothing non-standard. There is one miscellaneous item, but let's do the threats first. And to be honest, I see two types of threats. The first one is bird activity. It's high summer. We are very close to a river. You can see the elbow over here. So there is a very high chance that there may be some birds in the area. So we'll keep that in mind. And if a bird strike happens, it happens. We can't really do anything about it except to follow the EOSID. The second threat is VFR traffic. Now, we are going to stay within controlled airspace for our departure. At least there's not been any note on our SID chart that we would leave the controlled airspace. But nonetheless, there's loads of VFR operating in this region. So autopilot on as soon as possible, and then we'll have a good look outside. We'll do all the manual flying stuff later on at cruise level, so that we can focus on our aircraft's performance over here. Which is the miscellaneous item that I want to mention. We're at a very, very low weight, 56 tons. Max takeoff weight is 97. That means we have a lot of power available. For this reason, I will probably reduce our engines to climb thrust a little bit earlier than usual, and thereby just reduce our rate of climb a bit. Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns? No? Okay, I like it. Then let's do the cockpit preparation checklist. Wait a moment, this is the old Airbus checklist. Interesting. On another plane we used to have the current one. Can we change that somewhere? Okay, well, in that case, we're stuck with the old checklist, or we are just going to go for the... we're just going to go for the checklist from my real-life EFB, and that's actually what I'm going to do. So, cockpit preparation checklist, gear pins and covers, removed fuel quantity, 6,550 kilograms, and you can see the aft tanks are empty, and the fuel is balanced. So, seatbelts on, ADRs, nav, and altimeters, QNH 1023, cockpit preparation checklist complete. Okay, very good. So we are pretty much ready for everything. Then let's go ahead and request our IFR clearance. And for this, we will be using Say Intentions AI, who also is the sponsor of today's video. Now, a quick word on Say Intentions over here. We are doing severely non-standard stuff today. I'm really interested to see how the AI is going to handle that, but I am expecting issues today. I definitely am. Okay, so ATC request, pre-departure clearance. We're at 217 Lima. Our flight number is going to be Airbus 323 Whiskey, and our ATIS is Bravo. So let's say Moin, and 1 Pax on board. They want a last-minute update on that when you are doing test flights like we are doing here. Alright, and sent. So that stuff is sent. Then let's open our received messages. And while we're waiting, let's go ahead and tell... Oh, here it is already. So, request being processed, stand by. Okay, and while we're waiting, we are already operating on the APU, so let's tell ground crew to prepare the position for pushback and departure. So we go to the ground connections, services, and from here we can remote control GSX. So let's go prepare position for pushback and departure. Okay, and here comes our IFR clearance. You can see this works a little different in the FSLabs than it does in the Phoenix, but this is actually what my airline has installed as well, so we do this down here. Okay, cleared to Hamburg via Hamburg 3 Whiskey departure, maintain 4000, departure 118.205, squawk 1000, expect runway 23, Wilco. Now let's cross check, runway 23, Hamburg 3 Whiskey, and that's confirmed, maintain 4000, and departure 118.205, and last but not least, squawk 1000. Okay, and that's our clearance confirmed. We should get another message here saying clearance confirmed, by the way. But that is not simulated as far as I'm aware. Okay, with that we are done with our pre-flight procedures. It's 10:30, so this is our target off block time. So let's go ahead and request pushback clearance. For that, transponder on. And we're already on the tower frequency. That is the right one to be on, for now. Finkenwerder Tower, Airbus 323 Whiskey, request pushback and startup.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, Finkenwerder Tower, pushback and startup approved, face north.
Pushback and startup approved, facing north, Airbus 323 Whiskey. So, continue push, nose right. Ground from flight deck. Go ahead. Please confirm all doors and hatches are closed, ground equipment is removed, and the bypass pin is installed. That's all confirmed. Okay, thank you. We're clear to push, facing north. Park and brake is now released. Roger, starting the pushback, stand by for engine start. Standing by. Okay, before start, checklist please. So, park and brake. Released, takeoff speeds and thrust. V1 160, VR 160, V2 163, flex 57. Windows. Closed. And bacon tasty. Before start checklist complete. Okay then ground, we're ready for engine start, sequence 1 then 2. Roger, clear to start 1 then 2. Wait until there are no axes anymore. And engine 1 starts. Now I would love to show you this from the outside, but at the moment something is really weird with the sounds in MSFS. So I'll show it, but it may or may not sound correct. And Rampy gets killed once again. We should probably write some kill count on our aircraft, like you do with fighter aircraft. For every one they shot down, you draw a little airplane on that. Maybe we should draw a little ramp agent for every GSX ground worker that gets killed. However, I have a feeling we'll need to fly A380s very soon then, because there isn't enough space on any other airplane. Alright, that sounds like the engine start may be completed. Let's go inside, and indeed it is. And the pushback is completed as well, set brakes. And then we can start engine number 2. Now let's watch this closely. The first thing we see is the start valve opening, and then we should get N2. That's very correct. Now N2 is increasing. Next up we see oil pressure, which is correct. Now N1 starts to increase, which is looking pretty correct as well. So next up comes the fuel flow, and once fuel is injected we'll get ignition, so the EGT will rise momentarily, and once EGT rises we'll see N1 and N2 start to rise rapidly as well. And here we go. Very, very good. But FSLabs has always nailed engine simulations. They have great experience with that. Only the avail light. That one comes a little bit early. FSLabs seems to trigger that once the start valve is closed, and the real one it would trigger once the engine is stable. Because that is the signal for us that we can move on. But okay, here we go. So, trim should be up 2.5, which is here. So, ramp agent is seen, hand signal is seen, excellent. After start checklist, please. Anti-ice, off, ecom status, checked, pitch trim. Let's see, that is 20, well, more like 19% set. And rudder trim, neutral, after start checklist complete. So, why are you showing an open light? Okay, now it's closed. Interesting. Okay, we'll keep it at that. Well, there shouldn't be anyone down there anyway, so... Camera. Blacked out. Huh. If I would see that in the real world, I would get worried. And probably just lock the switch down there, but... let's keep it at that, shall we? Okay, so that's everything done. Let's do the flight controls next. Full up. Full down. Neutral. Full left. Full right. Neutral. Rudder. Full left. Full right. Neutral. Airbus 323 Whiskey, request taxi.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, taxi to runway 23 at your discretion.
Taxi to runway 23 at our discretion, Airbus 323 Whiskey. So, lights on, clear right side, clear left side, brake released. I would definitely expect my airplane to roll on idle thrust. We've got CFM LEAP engines under here, the same that you have on the 737 MAX, which I flew. I never flew the real A321neo, but I flew the 737 MAX, and the plane at this weight would easily accelerate past 30 knots. So I would definitely expect an A321 to do the same. Not at the maximum takeoff weight, of course, but down here, at 56 tons, should absolutely shoot ahead. And you will actually notice that once we are moving, it will continue accelerating. So that's some interesting behavior of the airplane here. So taxi straight ahead, slight right turn, and then we'll end up at the runway. Pretty easy stuff. So let's press that pedal disconnect button, and that is something that's worth talking about for a moment. Because the way FlightSimLabs simulates the tiller, you basically have two options. Either you have a separated hardware tiller. In that case, you can just replicate the real aircraft and its functions pretty much 100%. The other way is for what you can do if you just have simple flight sim hardware. For instance, if I'm just using the twist function of my joystick, then you can set it up so that when the pedal disconnect button is not pressed, you just have your standard 7 degrees of nose wheel steering on the pedals, or if you press it, then you are going to move your tiller with that axis and not the pedals. Airbus 323 Whiskey, request to backtrack runway 23.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, backtrack approved, runway 23.
Backtracking runway 23 approved, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. So again, we do need a little bit of thrust to break the
Airbus Industry 323
here.
Whiskey, roger. Continue backtracking, runway 23.
Okay. And now we just go back to idle and the plane just rolls on its own. So, strobes on. I'll also turn our TCAS on already. So, we're clear on the right side, and we're clear on the left side. Now, since we got a line on both sides, we just gotta make sure that we actually backtrack into the right direction.
0,
2-3 is that
5.
direction, so we gotta turn to the left. That's the direction that we are going to roll over. So another quick word in terms of the taxi model, and that's the tiller.
On runway
because
0,
it behaves a little
5.
different than what you may be used to from other Airbus simulations. This one is fairly unresponsive in the small ranges. Like, look at this. It's barely reacting here when I just do small inputs, and then it eventually reaches a point where it will really start turning extremely quickly. And you gotta nail that one point on your joystick in order to get the aircraft to behave right. Once you got the grips of it, it feels fantastic and taxis fantastic. But until you got the grips of it, you might accidentally do a 360 on the ground. You'll see that especially when we do our 180 on the backtrack in a few moments at the end of the runway, and I'll show you what I mean over there. Okay, so let's actually do our flow pattern here. So, no updates to our takeoff briefing. Again, the very rapid rate of climb is going to be the main issue. Acceleration will also happen extremely quickly, but we still got to make sure that we don't rotate too strong, because after all, it is an A321 that we are riding, and we don't want to tail strike it. It would be a pity. By now, the airline hasn't paid for it yet, so if we break it now, it's going to be on us. Okay, taxi checklist. Flight controls, checked. Flap setting, config 1 plus F. Radar and predictive wind shear, on and auto. Engine mode selector, norm. ECA memo, takeoff, no. Taxi checklist, complete. And see, now it accelerated up to 33 knots without any more than idle thrust. That's what I would expect the airplane to do. Alright, now let's make the 180. I'm going to bring it down to something very slow, like 6 knots here. And let's turn 20 to 30 degrees left. Wait until the flight deck is above the white line, and then we're going to make a full tiller input to the right. And now let me show you what's going to happen. So this is full tiller input. And now I'm releasing it. Look at how far the airplane still turns.
On runway 2,
This is
3.
something that needs getting used to by the pilot. Once you're used to it, the airplane handles beautifully, but you need to get used to it. Okay, so are you ready for departure? Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, ready for departure.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, runway 23, winds 265 at 5, cleared for takeoff.
Runway 23, clear for takeoff, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Lineup checklist, takeoff runway 23, full length, and we are facing into the right direction. TCAS, TARA, PAX 1 and 2, off, lineup checklist complete. Okay, ready? So, timing, I will hold the brakes, and then let's set takeoff thrust. The reason I'm holding the brakes is because otherwise things just go too quickly. So, engines react very slow when they're getting out of idle. That's exactly what I would expect, and then quite a lot faster thereafter. That's absolutely realistic. Okay then, let's go. Brakes released. Thrust set. Now watch the acceleration. Empty airplane. 100 knots. 8 seconds, huh?
V1.
Rotate. I like the rotation. Positive climb. Gear up. Okay, 400 feet, setting climb thrust. Otherwise it just has too much power. Okay, autopilot on, contacting departure. Flap 0. Speed checked, flap 0. Bim radar, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, passing 2000, climbing 4000. Speed alt start.
Airbus, Industry 323 Whiskey, Hamburg departure identified. Climb 4000.
Maintain 4000, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Okay, it remains an alt start. Fine with me. So, 1 minute and 20 seconds from the moment of setting takeoff thrust to almost reaching 4000 feet. Incredible. Minute and a half including the level off.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, climb flight level 210.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, climb flight level 210. Set. And climb alt 21,000 blue. Now, let's see what we're going to get with an unrestricted climb. We don't have climb thrust derates in the Neo. We just have full power. Look at this. 5,000 feet a minute. Set standard. Standard cross check, passing level 5-1.
3 Whiskey. Contact Bremen radar on 136.675.
136.675, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. So look at this, 5,000 feet a minute, and look at that angle. This is climb thrust, not takeoff thrust, my friends. Claim radar, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, passing level 72, climbing level 210.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, Bremen radar identified. Good afternoon.
Interesting, the target speed is changing a bit while we're going through the turn where the speed limit is. That is probably going... Yeah, that's definitely a bug. Oh well, now we're unrestricted anyway, so let's accelerate to those 290. Here we are. Okay, passing level 100. We are going to keep the fasten seatbelt signs on for the time being. Okay, clear and copy. And then, well, cruising 230 optimum is not relevant for this flight. We'll leave it at that. Alright, cool. So, let's see if we can get a shortcut here. Airbus 323 Whiskey, any chance to proceed direct Nusku?
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, Bremen radar, climb flight level 230. Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, proceed direct to Moscow.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, climb level 230, direct to Nusku. So, direct, Nusku, and insert. That way we're getting clear of the immediate Hamburg area already. Okay, we no longer need the chrono up here, and with that we're up and in the air. I like it. So let's climb up to cruise level. It's not going to take many more minutes. Also our pitch is at a decent level now, so let's release our engineer in the back so that he can check especially things like the door seals and stuff. This is what you would be checking in the cabin on the first flight. Let's take a quick moment to go back there and have a look at the cabin of this simulation. And of course the door doesn't open because we had it locked. Here we go. Okay, so this is the cabin. Unfortunately, it reminds me a little bit of the FSX version of the FSLabs Airbus. At least the galleys do. Yeah, no further comment. Hopefully they are going to update that. Alright, and this is what the passenger side of things look like. A little bit more advanced than the galleys, but then again, it is a rather basic cabin. On the other hand side, personally I don't really mind, but let's have a look into a couple of details here. Come on, I want to move to the window to show you the PSU. Okay, then we're going to move on to this side. So this is what the passenger service units look like. There is some reflection on the light textures down here, that's nice. We can of course not click any of the buttons, but that's kind of expected. And here we are, that's what the seating area and the passenger area looks like. This one is actually quite okay in my opinion. This isn't too bad. Even have details like that small hole up there.
Industry 323 Whiskey, when you're ready to begin your descent, descend flight level 140.
Airbus 323 Whiskey, when ready, descend flight level 140. Yeah, that's gonna be a while. Okay, so this is what the passenger view looks like. In my opinion, it's okay.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, descend flight level 140.
No, we're not going to descend just yet. I'll tell you what, I'm going to turn sane tensions off right now, because what we're about to do now, air work and stuff like this, is not part of anything that I would reasonably expect an ATC add-on to be able to cover. So let's go back to the front. Alright, we are going to close that door because we are about to do some interesting maneuvers. So let's take a seat, and we got speed alt star, leveling off in 230. Now the A321neo is a long-haul aircraft. You can, and airlines like Scandinavian, TAP, JetBlue do fly transatlantic with it. For this reason, let's go ahead and start testing a couple of the features that we would be using on a transatlantic. And alt cruise. It's reducing its airspeed. That's typical Airbus behavior. That is actually not a bug, it's a feature. Even though I don't know, I have absolutely no idea why Airbus programmed it that way, but they did, so we gotta live with it. Let's go ahead and start exploring a couple of the features in the FMS. So, starting down here, let's do an offset. Let's go 2 miles right offset. So we go onto the from waypoint, then we've got offset, to right, insert, insert. And we can see that it's turning offset to right. Is that 2 miles though, or is that more? It might be 2 miles. It looked so much, but now on the smallest range it seems fine. Now, what surprises me, the A330, and as far as I know the A320 as well, should have an offset to right shown on here on the nav display now. This one doesn't seem to have it. But apart from that, it's turning offset, it's doing so at a nice angle of bank. At least for these low altitudes. At high altitudes it might use a lot less, like only 10 degrees or so, but that's fine. So this is actually looking okay. Then let's go ahead and do another thing. Let's fly constant Mach number. So let's go to the vertical revision, constant Mach, and starting at the present position, well, we are doing 60 right now, let's do 0.62. So Mach 62 from the present position until, let's say, Nusku. Okay, insert. Offset deleted and temporary. Yeah, I don't care. And here we go. Now our cruise Mach number is 0.62. And it will only do that until Nusku. If you go to the constraints, you can actually see that down here as well. So this works. Nice. Now let's do the most important thing, and that's step climbs. And for that we go to the vertical revision, step altitudes. And now there's one thing that's rather important. That's for the optimum step, enter altitude only. So let's do that. We're in 230 right now. Let's say we want level 240. Oh, that's interesting. Why did it delete that? It shouldn't. Let's try again. Step out, let's say 250. Interesting. It shows it correctly for a few seconds and then deletes it. I guess this route may be too short I mean, it's 269 miles to the top of descent. We could reasonably expect to do a step over here. Let's try once more. 250. Yeah, you can see it shows correctly for a moment, then it vanishes. Well, this worked on a previous test, but of course, show factor, it doesn't. We'll just take it as that. Now, something else that we are regularly using is time markers. So it's 10:53 right now. Let's say we want a marker at, say, 1100. Enter 1100, insert it somewhere over here, and this is a bug. This should now insert a time marker. Hopefully they're going to add that soon. Now, other stuff that we may or may not be using is pilot waypoints. So let's go in here, new waypoint, and let's say I want to draw an equal time point between two airports. Now, this is going to be total nonsense that we're drawing right now, but just to show you if it works. So let's say we want XFW and Hamburg, because this is a little non-standard entry format here. I just want to see if that works. Now let's just make it a PBD from Nusku /360/10 miles. You could also use things like latitude, longitude input here, or place bearing, but I'm gonna do PBD store, and now let's insert that on the fix info page. So we called it XFW Hotel Alpha Mike, and here we go, it works. We can enter this. Nice. Now let's return back to our route. Offset, delete, and insert. And now we're returning to the route. Good. Also, we've passed Nusku, so the target speed is going back down to our cost and next driven speed. Nice. Then we should be far away from, or far enough away from Hamburg that we can actually do a little bit of nice stuff now. Let's take Laszlo and insert a holding here. 2 minutes, I tell you what, 15 miles. Distance, right-hand turns, that's all looking good. Insert. What is this? Okay, I got no idea what that line is. That's going to the side there. It's definitely not supposed to be here. But the holding itself is looking quite alright. It's automatically reducing speed to the holding speed. I don't need to do that though. Maintain 240, please. And now we're going to use this holding to have a little bit of fun with our aircraft. I'm going to start with the basic over here, and that's just some checking of the flight control laws. So let's turn off the autopilot. We'll stay within the holding area here. Flight directors off, bird on. And here we go. So let's do a little bit of basic air work. I'm going to start with a right-hand turn. And I'll make it so that you can see my side stick at the bottom over here. So, starting the right-hand turn, it's going into a slight descent here. That's correct behavior, but look at that, it's somewhat correcting for it as well. So, I tend to say this is kinda okay. Now, let's go ahead and make the turn a little bit stronger. Let's go up to 45 degrees angle of bank here, and now we definitely need some nose up input. So here we go, that's a standard steep turn. And now, if we just let go of the side stick, it should roll back to 30 degrees of bank. And it's doing it, but it's also pitching down, for which I see no reason. So I'm pulling again, maintain that altitude. Silence. I killed you. Okay. So, let's go ahead and try an actual steep turn and fly the airplane all the way into its protection now. So, full right stick. Should get 66 degrees of bank. Also note that I'm pulling completely, and it should take the nose up. So, see, I'm actually pulling here. The nose is not coming up. That is a bug. Okay, let's roll wings level again and regain that altitude. Silence. Alright, so there's a bug. We're not able to maintain our attitude with 66 degrees of bank. Why is that interesting? Basically, because the Airbus should allow a maximum of 2.5 Gs. But of course, 60 degrees of bank should exactly be 2 Gs while maintaining level flight. So we know that there is something wrong in the extremes of the flight control law here. Let's go ahead and level back off again. And well, of course we could do the same thing to the other side. Let's just try. So this is full left and aft stick input. The nose should not be coming down like this. Let's release the stick. Look at how the nose drops even further. No, it's not supposed to do that. Okay, so this gives me an opportunity to test the other extremes though, that's pitch up and pitch down. So let's just turn auto thrust off here. Set max climb thrust. And now let's pitch it all the way up to 30 degrees. So full aft stick. You can see the G loading down here, 2.3, that's okay. And it's maintaining 30. Nice. Releasing the stick. And it's going to maintain this. And now the nose comes down. Since we're approaching... This was very aggressive though. A little bit too aggressive for my taste. But okay. So now that we're in the low speed regime, let's go to idle thrust and let's actually test the protections. So we'll bring the aircraft roundabout into the area of this hold again. And now let's see what we can do with it. So what we're looking for right now is, once we reach VLS, nothing should happen. So I'm going to release the stick now. Now let's watch it. Entering VLS, nothing should happen. No reaction. This is only a band that the auto throttle can't fly, and this doesn't matter. The next one, however, is going to matter. I'm just going to pitch up again so that we reduce our speed a bit quicker. So this one is going to matter. This is the alpha protection range, and you will notice that the airplane is going to pitch down automatically to prevent us from actually flying into this. So come on, let's just pitch up a bit, because in here we're actually able to override this. So you can see, we can... No, alpha floor is coming on too early, much too early. Okay, so see, when I let go of the stick, it's now pitching down so that our speed is going to get out of the alpha protection range again. Ew, what is it doing? No, it's not supposed to go up and down like this. But we're getting out of the alpha prop, that's good. Now let's go to alpha max. This is the maximum the airplane should allow with full aft stick. So let's pitch up again. We can pull it straight into alpha prop, no problem. Let's pitch it to alpha max. Okay, toga lock is coming much too early. Now we'll have a problem, because we have so much power. Okay, full aft stick. And you will notice that the speed will go down to alpha max, but it won't let it lose any more speed. Okay, can't override the alpha floor at the moment. Okay, but you can somewhat see what I want to show. See, full aft stick, this is neutral, this is full aft, it won't let us fly into here. See? Very good. Exactly the alpha max. Okay, so now let's let go of the stick. Now we'll do the same going into the other direction. So let's now do this with an overspeed scenario. Okay, so MCT is set. Let's also turn auto thrust on again. Here we go, manual MCT. Okay, let's have it accelerate a little bit, and now we are going to try the overspeed protections. Takes a little while to accelerate. I just don't want to pitch down too early, because otherwise we are going to lose a whole lot of altitude on this maneuver. But we can already make a right-hand turn and ensure we get back into the holding area. And just for the fun of it, let's make it a steep turn. Yes, this kind of stuff does happen on maintenance check flights. Now look at this, full aft stick. The nose should absolutely go up. It shouldn't go down like this. What do we have here? G-load 1.5, see? That's too little. It should give us more than that. Yeah, altitude is checked. Now we're going towards the overspeed range. Up to the green symbol here, nothing is gonna happen. Once we're in that, that's when the protection should trigger. Now let's just roll back into a normal angle of bank here. Let's also fly back towards our holding pattern, and once we're on the way, we can enter the overspeed. So let's pitch down a little. Now you can see nothing, and once we enter this, overspeed warning comes on. Let's cancel that. But you can see the airplane automatically pitches up to keep us within that limit. It has a couple knots tolerances, which it's using up there, but overall, easy going. That's how the high-speed protection should work. Silence. Okay, so let's actually reduce our thrust a little bit. We'll go manual thrust again. Now let's try the same thing, this time a little bit more aggressively, so that the protection actually has to work. So let's go into a steep descent here. And this time I'm just going to keep full forward stick. Now look at what's going to happen. Silence, please. And you can see it's going to keep plus 20. That's the limit of the fly-by-wire system. Now let's get aggressive. Adding some thrust. And you can see it aims to maintain the plus 20. So it's pitching up now. And that's working pretty well. Alright, this is still full forward stick. Holding very nicely. Now when I release the stick, it's going to reduce that slightly. You can see it's pitching very, very slowly because it doesn't want to pull high G-forces when we're in an overspeed. But the speed is slowly coming back. That's what we're looking for. Okay, this is actually looking pretty good. So let's bring the automatics back on. Flight director on. But off. So let's turn back towards Laszlo. That's going to be like 110. Full vertical speed 1000. Okay, autopilot on. Auto thrust on. Okay, speed, vertical speed, heading, autopilot, auto thrust. That's everything restored. Nice. So this was just a little test over here. Now let's do a right-hand turn, say heading 300. And now I want to do a couple more tests. The first one that I want to do is going to be an engine shutdown and an engine relight in flight. We do have alt star. So let's see if we got anything over there in our documents. So we do have a QRH. And over here we have a little bit of stuff. So engine relight, here it is. So we will be doing that in a fairly quick manner. So the first thing we got to figure out is down here the engine in-flight engine relight envelope, and we can see that we can relight up to flight level 270. We're at level 230 right now, so over here. So that means within this range, up to about 270 knots, we will need to do it starter assisted, and above that, we can do it windmill assisted. So let's give this a try. This will be starter assisted. We know this already. Now the airplane's perfectly capable of doing this on autopilot, so let's go ahead and shut down an engine. We'll pick engine number 2 here, that's randomly picked now. So thrust lever idle. Engine number 1 responds accordingly. And that's looking very good. So that's auto flight, auto thrust limited, thrust levers move. Yeah, we don't need to worry about this one for now. But of course it wants MCT, so let's give it that. Speed. Okay, and shutting down number 2. Okay, we have engine 2 shutdown. N1, as you can see, remains pretty high since we've just got that huge fan over here that's getting struck by 240 knots of wind. So, of course, the thing will keep rotating. You can see the core is spooling down a little bit further, so that's all as expected. Okay, so let's go ahead and run the procedure. Engine 2 shutdown. Engine mode selector ignition. So, engine mode selector ignition. Then if no fuel leak, we don't have a fuel leak, we know that. Imbalance monitor, TCAS mode select. Oh, that was a bit early, so recall. Imbalance monitor, TCAS mode selector TA. And if buffered, we don't have a buffered, but our speed is 240 anyway. Okay, clear engine 2, clear engine 2. Elect Gen 2 forward. This is interesting. I mean, the engine is shut down. I would kind of expect that it should suppress that message. But the Gen 2 fault is confirmed, so let's just do it. So Gen 2, off, then on. That's ELEC, Gen 2, off. Wait a second, then on. If unsuccessful, Gen 2 off. Yeah, surprise. ELEC, Gen 2, off. Clear ELEC. Okay, so land ASAP in amber. Air bleed is checked, clear bleed. And ELEC, Gen 2 is off as expected, clear ELEC. Okay, status. And we can stop the ECAM right over there because we are going to do a restart. So let's just make a right hand turn again, something like heading 0. Yeah, 090. Okay, so engine relight in flight. Engine master, engine number 2 off. That's confirmed off. So thrust lever engine number 2 idle. Confirmed idle. Engine mode selector ignition. Ignition. And thrust bleed open. So aircon, thrust bleed open. Okay, wing anti-ice for starter assisted off. This is going to be starter assisted, so wing anti-ice is off. And then engine master number 2 on. Engine light up should be achieved within 30 seconds after fuel flow increase. If no relight, engine master affected engine off. During the relight attempt, if the N2 does not increase above 50% within 70 seconds, the flight crew can consider the relight as not successful. Okay, so ready? Engine master on. Start the timing. So N2 is increasing. Fuel flow. Let's wait for the EGT increase. I'm monitoring the timing down here. Okay, EGT is moving, but not increasing. It's actually interesting that the EGT is still this high. I would certainly expect a lower EGT, since we are not on the ground here. On the ground, residual EGT is absolutely a thing, but we are not on the ground, we are in the air. So, in any case, the rest of the engine is behaving okay and actually lighting up. Okay, so that's looking pretty good to me. Let's see, avail. Here we go. Engine avail, wonderful, so that's engine number 2 restarted. Okay, so when idle is reached, engine mode selector norm. Norm. TCAS mode selector, check Tara. Here we go, Tara. And affected systems restore. And crossbleed back to auto as well. So aircon crossbleed auto, elect Gen 2 on. Okay. Then we can return both engines into CL, and here we go. Alright, so that is looking pretty good so far. The airplane is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Okay, nav. I don't know why though. Nav wasn't blue, was it? Okay, well, it doesn't matter. In any case, that's the engine relight in flight that we wanted to do. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and actually start returning towards Finkenwerder. So, how are we going to do this? Well, first of all, let's manage everything again. We can arm the exit down here, so that we can leave this holding. Here we go. Our target speed should be increasing in a few moments. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and restart say intentions so that we get some ATC again. Hello. We are exiting the holding. You can increase your speed again. Here we go, that's better.
Airbus Industry
Why is it reverted to
323
heading?
Whiskey, descend, flight level 120.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, descend flight level 120. Airbus 323 Whiskey, request to proceed direct, Warup.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, proceed direct to your destination, EDHI.
Proceed direct destination, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Okay. So, direct Finkenwerder. He didn't say whether it should be a left or a right-hand turn, so that's okay with me. Alright, 17 nautical miles out. Let's go ahead and start to prepare for an approach into Finkenwerder. And let's just select VS minus 1000. Alright, so Navigraph. Let's go down here to the arrival, see what it's pinned. So we don't need that departure chart. Here we go. Arrival, runway 23. So ATIS is on 135965, but let's just make our lives easy. So ATSU, AOC menu, weather request, and we'll pretty much keep what we had earlier. So let's go ahead and request this. Received messages. Here we go. So Finkenwerder now is variable at 4 knots, clear skies, 24 degrees, QNH 1023. Which is exactly what we've got in here as well. I like it. Okay, so 1023, 24, and variable. Nice. We'll use config full for this approach. And then we've got a minimum of 271. Alright, and that's it for the time being. So, I'm sure we will eventually get radar vectors. Well, what else do we need to prepare? Auto brake low. The ROW is selected to dry. And up here everything is done. Nice. So they can finish up their stuff in the cabin. We'll sit them down at level 100. That's totally fine with me. Okay. So, while we are proceeding towards our destination, let's go ahead and do another couple of tests. Because I just want to see some general ECAM handling here. So, let's go ahead and actually bring the airplane into the emergency electric configuration. So, Gen 2, off. Now let's bring up the elect page. Here we go, Gen 1 has taken over. Elect Gen 2 off, that's checked. Now let's do the same with Gen 1. And now things are gonna get interesting. Okay, here we go. Silence. So, autoflight, autopilot off. Clear autoflight. ELEC, EMA config. Minimum rad speed 140 knots. Now let's see. The rat is deployed. Very good, and we have all 3 hydraulic systems running. Excellent. Okay, so ELEC, EMR config, minimum rad speed 140, Gen 1 and 2, off then on. That would already restore the system. I'm totally happy with it. Just what I want to show you is that the rat is actually deployed down here, and through that the emergency generator is feeding the aircraft. A very quick test, can we use the autopilot? No, okay. On the A330 you can, but the A330 probably has some higher certification standards. Okay, so let's go ahead and restore our electrics here. Gen 1 on. Now it's going to take a little while. So, autopilot 1. Nav. Auto thrust. So, speed, vertical speed, nav, autopilot, auto thrust. Good. Then let's just wait until we get some systems to start. Okay, so it's just still got the Gen 2 that's off. Let's bring that online. Okay, let's give it a little while to restore everything. And that is actually looking quite okay. Alright, so looks like the only thing that did not come back to life. Let's see if we can restart the right MCDU. Yes, we can. Looks like the only thing that did not come back to life is our transponder, which is actually flickering down there. Interesting. Let's re-enter that squawk.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, negative identified. Please verify your squawking 1000 and your transponder is set to mode C.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, we have a transponder failure. We're passing 15,700, descending level 120.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, identified 12 northwest of Flugplan TZ Lüchow-Rehbeck at flight level 150, QNH 1022.
QNH 1022, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Okay,
Airbus
so
Industry 323 Whiskey, roger. Continue your descent to flight level 120. Maintain visual separation and report any further issues.
continue descent level 120, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Okay, so that's actually looking
Airbus
quite okay.
Industry 323 Whiskey, contact Hamburg approach on 118.205.
118.205, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Hamburg approach, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, passing level 147, descending 120.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, Hamburg approach identified. Hello, expect the ILS runway 23 approach into Finkenwerder.
Expect ILS 23, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Okay, so we still have the transponder 1 and 2 fault indicated. In-up systems. Now this is interesting. Transponder 2 is listed twice. It's probably not supposed to be like this. Fairly surely not supposed to be like this.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, descent flight level 110.
Descent flight level 110, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. And request radar vectors to final approach.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, descent flight level 110. Expect vectors for the ILS approach to runway 23 at Finkenwerder.
Descending level 110, expecting vectors ILS 23, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Alright, speed, vertical speed, 1000 to go. Let's start reducing our airspeed a bit. 250, please. And here we go. Okay, so rat out, emergency generator, those are both checked. We can't stow the rat in flight, so that's fine.
Airbus Industry 32, 3 Whiskey, turn right heading 355.
Turn right heading 355, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Okay, let's clean up the flight plan here. Direct to time up with the radial in. Insert. Why is it going to nav? There is no reason to do that, and there is no reason for the heading to change as well. Okay, this is probably looking better. Okay, cool. So it's time to seat him down, and then let's go ahead and start our approach briefing, please. Alt star.
Speedbird Nina 82 Golf contact Bremen radar on 127 decimal
Nina.
675.
No, that's Nina, my friend.
Over to Bremen radar on 127.675 G, Speedbird 982 Golf.
Briefing, we'll get radar vectors for an ILS approach runway 23, minimum
contact
271.
Bremen radar
Go
on
around is
127.675.
straight at 3 DME, then a left turn back to
Over
Hamburg
Bremen radar
VOR,
on
climbing 4000.
127.675 Ryanair
And
3 Quebec
well, we've
Juliet.
got an extra fuel
Airbus
and
Industry
time.
323 Whiskey, descent altitude 4000.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, descent altitude 4000. Okay, thrust idle, descent out for flight level 40 blue. Why is there no box across thrust
Airbus
idle?
Industry
That should have been
323
boxed.
Whiskey, descent altitude 4000 feet.
Descent altitude 4000 feet, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Okay, set QNH. QNH 1023 cross-check, passing 10,800 now. Okay, cool. So let's go back to the left side. It will be flight director guided ILS approach. We'll keep the autopilot in for the first one. We'll probably do a go-around out of this. So flight director guided ILS, runway 23, flaps full, and we are going to do a go-around on the first one because I want to try the reduced
Ryanair
go-around
7
thrust
Echo
feature.
Victor, contact Bremen
And
radar
then
on
we'll get radar vectors back for a
124.075.
second approach. Nothing special, nothing non-standard,
Switching to Bremen
and
radar
that's
on
all I
124.075
gotta offer here.
Ryanair 7 Echo Victor.
The kit probably have to do 180. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go auto brake medium, then we don't have to do 180. And that's it. Any questions? No? Wonderful. So, passing 100, lights are coming on, constraints and LS. Like this, GPS primary, high accuracy, mode selectors in norm. Wonderful, that's the 10,000 foot flow complete. Approach checklist, please. Baro reference, QNH 1023, seatbelts on, minimum, Baro 271, auto brake, medium, engine mode selector, norm, approach checklist complete. So that was pretty nice so far. The vector is looking quite good, still 20 miles though, so let's go ahead and maintain that speed for a little bit longer, shall we? Okay, so let's take a moment to talk about the reduced go-around thrust feature, since I mentioned it so often already. What is that? Why do we have it? Basically, Airbus came to one conclusion. When you do a go-around,
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, proceed direct Hotel India 035. Descent altitude 3000 until established on the localizer. Cleared for the ILS runway 23 approach.
Direct Hotel India 035, descend and maintain 3000 until established, cleared ILS 23, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Speed descent nav 3000 blue. Then we can just remove that discon over here. So this is looking perfect. Okay, so back to the reduced go-around feature. Airbus realized that normally when you do a go-around, you're at a pretty low weight. Because you have already flown your flight, most of the trip fuel is gone. You basically only have your alternate fuel, your final reserve fuel, and your zero fuel weight. And this means when you go into full toga thrust, the engines are going to be hugely overpowered. And that could be an issue, because the airplane is going to develop a significant rate of climb. Now, to counter this, Airbus has installed the reduced go-around mode. And for this, what you do when you go around is basically you move the thrust lever to toga, and then you immediately pull them back. And that way you go into a go-around with a reduced rate thrust that's going to be sufficient for a rate of climb that's going to be somewhere around 2,000 feet a minute. So dynamically calculated, very smart thing. And honestly, I was surprised that Airbus only came up with this with the Neo Airbuses, and that they didn't have this in the conventional ones, because Boeing had this for a very, very long time. On Boeing aircraft, you do one toga press, it gives you a reduced go-around thrust. You do a second, you get full go-around thrust. So, well, I guess we should be happy that Airbus has it now. And we are, of course, going to try this one out, because it is new with the Neos, and FSLabs does simulate it. And yes, I do realize that this video is becoming a little bit longer right now. It'll probably be 2 hours in the end, but there is so much you can do with this airplane. It's really worth it to do all of this. And honestly, there would have been a lot of additional things that we could have done here that I didn't even go into. So, yeah, I suppose you could really do a lot of stuff with this. Okay, approaching, vertical speed, and speed. So we still have 7 miles to run to tarmac, so I'm not in any rush to start reducing our airspeed. So first approach flown by the autopilot, second approach will be a manual one to landing. It cleared for the ILS. What is it doing?
Qatari Nina 8 Papa contact, Bremen radar on 124.075.
That's interesting. Why don't we get Cat 1? Oh,
altimeter setting.
Okay.
Switching to Bremen radar on 124.075. Qatari 9 8 Papa.
108.5, is that correct?
Altimeter setting.
Yes. And RAS, don't start bitching, we are in the correct altimeter setting. All star. Shut up. Okay, interesting. Something is blocking our localizer. That changes the entire equation.
323 Whiskey, contact Finkenwerder Tower on 123.255.
123.255, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey.
Switching to
Alt. So I haven't seen something like this yet. We have a glide slope but no localizer. Well, in that case, let's quickly change our plans in here. Arrival. Let's switch this to an RNAV approach. And we're inbound tarmac already. Let's see. Let's go heading momentarily. Insert. Direct to tarmac. Insert. Why do we get the caution down here? Okay, so. For real? We cannot activate the approach mode? Why is that? Here we go. Okay, final approach. Finkenwerder Tower, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, established runway 23. Note how I did not mention my type of approach. Flaps 1. So, minimum on this one should be 392. So, what's the frequency? 123.255. And we are on that. Finkenwerder Tower, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, established ILS 23.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, Finkenwerder Tower, wind 255 at 5. Runway 23, clear to land.
Runway 23, clear to land, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Okay.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, roger.
So, established on the final, go around altitude, 4,000 is set. Okay, flaps 2. Speed checked. Flaps 2. So yeah, cancel this, and status page is copied and removed. Gear down. Okay, this message is annoying. Cancel. Alright, flaps 3. Speed checked. Flap 3. So we'll be falling below the red speed at 140. Let's see what's going to happen to the emergency generator. And flaps full. Speed check, flaps full. Landing checklist, ECA memo, landing no blue. Landing checklist complete. Okay, nicely established, and we will wait with the go around until we're over that forest over here, because we don't want to cause any noise trouble. It will not be a last second go around, but over the forest, I think that's going to be fine. And that's checked. So, the nose is pitching up and down a little bit. That's something I really notice here. Look at this. It's not following the flight director precisely either. Man. Quite aggressive. Okay, so
Approaching.
go around
2,
flaps.
3.
Here we go.
Altimeter
Man
7.
GA soft, SRS, nav. And flaps 3. So, that's the new one.
Altimeter 7.
Open climb. Oh, that sounded interesting. So, thrust climb, open climb, auto thrust. Flaps 1. Speed checked. Flaps 1, gear up. Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey going around. So, see how our rate of climb is at a fairly decent rate here?
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, landing clearance cancelled.
Flaps up.
Execute missed approach procedure, contact departure on 118.205.
118.205 on the standard missed approach procedure, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Hold star. Flame radar, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, passing 3,000, climbing 4,000.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey departure identified. Guten Tag Finkenwerder QNH 1023.
QNH 1023, request radar vectors for an RNP approach runway 23.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, cleared for RNAV approach runway 23, continue on present heading for vectors.
Continue present heading, expect RNAV approach runway 23, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Heading. And alt. Alright, so let's bring it back up to 250 knots because I don't want to be flying here for an eternity. So, here we go, select the 250.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, turn right heading 040 vectors for the RNAV runway 23 approach.
Turn right heading 040, vectors RNAV 23,
Altimeter
Airbus
7.
323 Whiskey. Okay, heading 040.
Altimeter 7.
No altimeter setting. Not sure what's going on with VRAS there. We are below the transition altitude, we should be on QNH. Okay. So, we don't have an after takeoff checklist here, but we do have the acceleration flow pattern, which is flaps up, speed brakes, retracted, gear up, and packs on. Then let's have a look into our second approach, and for this, you can see it's already reselected the RNAV approach runway 23. So let's just go down here, direct, Hotel India 035, 047 as radial in, and Insert, pull heading, heading. Cool, so that's reinserted. Then let's go back to the performance page, activate approach phase, and here we go. This one we are going to fly config 3 approach. That way we can see how the aircraft is handling with both flap settings. We now know how flaps full look like. Let's do a flap 3 approach. So, quite beautiful, isn't it? Well, and that was the soft go-around. So, push it to toga, pull it back to MCT, and then you get the go-around soft. Which, as you can see, has really limited our rate of climb. We didn't completely shoot through the sky. About 2,000 feet a minute, as said. So, now, why is this not doing any calculations anymore? We still have our weights in here, but for some reason it stopped calculating. Interesting, let's try to re-enter that weight.
Contact Bremen radar on 136.675.
Switching to Bremen radar on 136.675.
It stopped doing calculations.
7 Tango Whiskey.
Okay, well, we can help ourselves, but this is not very nice. So, Finky 23, everything selected, landing weight 54.1, is that correct? Let's see. Gross weight 54.6, so yeah, 54.1 is fine. And calculate. So, we approach 122, VLS 117. And now it's calculating again. Okay, fine. And of course I had the wrong flap setting in here. Good thing that we noticed this. So we approach 130, VLS 125. That's much better. Okay, perfect. So everything is done down here. And we can just do a second approach briefing, please. So now it's really going to be easy, but let's have you do it. So we are landing on, I think that Arnav approach,
Anatolian 5
runway
Juliet, contact Bremen radar on 136.675.
go around straight at to,
Switching to Bremen
what's it
radar
called
on
this time, Hotel India 038, left turn to Hamburg,
Anatolian
climbing
5 Mike
4000,
Juliet.
just like we have already done it before. And extra fuel and time are now 1 hour and 9 minutes. Yeah, plenty fuel on board. Plenty of it. Okay, so flight director guided RMP approach using config 3 only, and this time there isn't all that much for us to do differently. So, auto brake medium, idle reverse. We are so light we don't need to worry about that, so auto brake medium, idle reverse, and config 3, vacate the runway to the left hand side, back to stand 217 left. No hotspots for our taxi in, and stop margin, yeah, go figure. Factored 1700 meters, and we've got like 2500 available, so 800 meters of stop margin. Any questions? No? Beautiful. Approach checklist, please. Barrel ref, QNH 1023, seatbelts on minimum, Baro 392, auto brake, medium, engine mode selector, norm, approach checklist completed. So, shall we just ask for a direct to waypoint 035? I think that may make things easiest. Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, we are happy to proceed direct, Hotel India 035.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Proceed direct to Hotel India 035 approved.
Direct Hotel India 035 approved, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Enough. Oh, you're turning into the wrong direction.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, turn right heading 080.
I turn right heading 080, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Okay, it's redecided. Heading. And let's just extend that center line again. And insert. Heading. Okay, well...
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, 8 miles from Hotel India 035. Turn right heading 165, descend altitude 3000 until established. Cleared for the RNAV runway 23 approach.
Turn right heading 165, descend 3000 until established. Cleared RNAV runway 23, Airbus 323 Whiskey. Vertical speed, alt 3000 blue, heading 165. You're cleared for the approach. I'll keep the speed for a little bit because, well, we don't have eternal time to waste. And I gotta say, this heading is actually quite good. So this was a pretty well managed missed approach. Now, look at that windscreen. There's something for the lovers of visual things for you with FSLabs bug splatter. So just by being at the low altitude for that approach and then going around, we collected
Etihad
quite a
11 Bravo,
couple of
contact
bugs
Bremen
already.
radar on 125.3.
And yes, that is exactly
Switching to Bremen
what it
radar
looks
on
like
125.3,
in the real
Etihad
world.
11 Bravo.
Your windows will be completely full of them. And that's what it looks like in summer over here as well. Okay, approach nav, final blue. And it's automatically generated the intercept point. Nice, it's still giving us the distance from the threshold, even nicer. Approach phase is already active. Nicest. Approach nav. The slight turn into the opposite direction when going into nav mode is not so nice though. And why is it redrawing my center line now? It should have maintained the line drawing that it had previously. Okay, we're approaching the decel point down there. Let's wait until we're level in 3000, then we can manage the speed and have it reduce its speed again.
Swiss 9 Victor Quebec, contact Bremen radar on 127.675.
Over to Bremen radar on 127.675, Swiss 9 Victor Quebec.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, contact Finkenwerder Tower on 123.255.
123.255, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Bye-bye. Okay, manage speed. Final approach. Go around altitude 4000 set. Finkenwerder Tower, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, on off approach runway 23.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, Finkenwerder Tower, roger, continue approach runway 23.
Continue approach runway 23, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Okay, flaps 1. Speed checked. Flaps 1. Status. So, cancelled caution is the one from the transponder. We still have the message for transponder 2 failure twice in here. The rest is related and okay, so remove status. So, just while I can show you something. FSLabs has actually managed to simulate the pitch on approach really nicely. Look at this. This is typical Airbus. When you're in config 1, that's without the flaps, so just the slats, and close to the S speed, your pitch is going to be somewhere up here, 7.5 degrees. And they've simulated that really nicely. Of course, now we're pitching down as we're passing tarmac and starting the final descent along our approach. But just wanted to bring that to your attention. It's a really neat little thing that they've added to the flight model that I haven't seen in any other simulation yet. So
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, wind 255 at 5. Runway 23 clear to land.
runway 23 clear to land, Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey. Wind check. Of course I didn't hear it earlier.
Airbus Industry 323 Whiskey, wind 255 at 5.
Okay, 255 at 5 is in here. Nice. So yeah, that high pitch, the A330 does it, the A320 family does it, and FSLabs actually manages to simulate it.
2000.
So, flaps 2. And now going to flaps 2 is really the flap setting which is going to bring our pitch down a lot. Because this is when the flaps come out. The slats basically just increase your alpha max, but when the flaps are coming out, that's when the airplane is gaining so much lift that the nose really comes down, as you can see nicely. So, gear down. Flaps 3, speed checked. Flaps 3. Okay, landing checklist. Ecam memo, landing no blue, landing checklist complete. All right. So, I'm really enjoying this flight, my friends.
1000.
Checked. Okay, the puppy is inside, so flight director's off, bird on, please. Okay, so landing checklist is complete. Flight directors are off, bird is on, runway is inside, we're right on the puppy. I like it. I really do like it.
Approaching 2, 3.
Now let me tell you one quick word about the flare model
Altimeter
in this
7.
airplane. No,
Altimeter 7.
No.
500.
So let me tell you one quick thing about the flare in this airplane. For some reason, the FSLabs doesn't really take the nose down on its own. Airbuses do that. The wide bodies do it naturally, the narrow
above.
bodies do it by actually introducing a nose down pitch moment.
400.
In any case, they should do it. And this one,
Minimum.
well, is very, very easy to flare. And then it just maintains its pitch, which is a bit of a thing that I would hope for them to do a bit better in the future. But you're going to see what I mean. So let's land
100.
rather short. I'm going a little bit lower here intentionally because I want to catch that exit.
50. 40. 30.
So flare.
20. Retard. 5.
So, spoilers, reverse green. And you can go to idle reverse, please. And decel, brake medium. Okay, manual brakes. All right. So we ended right at the exit. You can see where I wanted to go a little bit lower on the profile, right?
323 Whiskey. Welcome to Sync Inverter. Taxi to parking via Golf monitor this frequency.
Taxi parking via Golf, monitor your frequency, Airbus 323 Whiskey. Well, and here we are. So you can see the flare is a little bit of an interesting thing in here. Feels quite different from the Phoenix Airbus. So if you've previously flown the Phoenix, then you will definitely have to get used to flying the FSLabs. Now, in my opinion, the Phoenix actually feels a little bit nicer on the flare than the FSLabs does, because Phoenix have just worked on that a lot and lot and lot in the past. But yeah, I'm very interested to hear what you guys think about the parking. Or not the parking, I'm mentally already a step ahead. What you guys think about the flare and how that is working out. So, looking for a 217 on the left, and it's not too small, definitely not. Okay, after landing checklist, radar and predictive wind shear, off, after landing checklist complete. Okay, start APU. lights off, please. And here we go. Those stairs are much too close, but, well, there is no profile available for this airport. Okay, APU is available. Now, see why I taxied so slowly? Okay, here we go. So, parking brake is set, APU avail, APU bleed on, and shut down. Okay, both engines are running down. The engineer is disarming the slide, I like it. And below 20%. So, parking checklist, please. Parking brake are chocks, brake set, engines, off, wing lights, off, fuel pumps, off, parking checklist complete. Now, don't leave right here yet, we still have a couple of interesting things to go over. The first one is going to be the brake temperature, because as you can see, the brakes got pretty hot, and FSLabs nailed the brake temperature simulation. On the Phoenix, nah, the brakes just don't get warm enough. On the FSLabs they do, and you can really notice how Airbus brakes are becoming hot so incredibly quickly. So you got to pay very good attention to your brake temperature management, especially if you have an aircraft that is not equipped with a parking fan. What's our mashallah doing up there? Okay, come on, the parking wasn't that good. Alright, so the brake temperature simulation is one thing. Of course, we'll just let them cool back down again. But, nonetheless, I do want some chocks in place, so let's go to MCDU menu, options and external controls. And over here we can connect chocks and the ground power unit. So with the chocks in, let's go park and brake off. And GPU on, APU off. Alright, now we gotta go down into the ATSU. And back to the flight initialization. And over here we now have the review of our flight. So 3:30 driver was landing. Then we can cross-check that all those times are correct. Block time 140, flight time 107. Is that correct? No, that out time is not correct. We pushed at something just after 30. Interesting. So the out time it recorded is not correct. But yeah, we'll just leave it at that. In any case, the landing pilot is important for the company to monitor if you still have your 3 takeoff and landings within 90 days. And then we also got to tell it if it's an auto land or not, because that's important for the aircraft logbook. And with all of that in, let's hit send. And now it's sent to the company, and that way you can see it's now reset itself for an automatic import of the next flight. And that, my friend, is how this works. So then, let's go ahead and turn off the ADRs 1, 2 and 3. Can also turn off the crew supply, emergency lights, the standard lights, the batteries. Now let's just have an eye on the APU, because the flap is still open. Gotta wait for that to shut down. In the meantime, down to the services, and okay, it's already showing deboarding. Oh. Where did it get all those passengers from? I didn't know we had so many passengers. What's GSX doing once again? No comment. No comment on this. We'll pretend we have never seen that. Okay, APU is out. And here we go. Securing the aircraft checklist, please. Oxygen off, emergency exit lights off, EFBs off, batteries off. Securing the aircraft checklist complete. Well, and this, my friends, is it. That's the FlightSimLabs Airbus A321neo. I do hope you liked this little insight into the aircraft. I do hope that you stuck around for the entirety of the 2-hour and 5 video. And with that out of the way, thank you very much for watching. As always, be sure to leave your like underneath the video. If you liked the Intentions AI, maybe the go-around handling on this one, which was quite nice. If you like that, be sure to leave your feedback underneath the video and check them out using the link in the pinned comment and the video description below. And with all of that out of the way, thank you very much for watching. As always, like, comment and subscribe. And if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.